Okay, how's this working? Okay, this should be working pretty well, guys. Hopefully, you guys should be seeing the stream. Should be working pretty. So, can you guys in chat let me know if there's any audio problem stuff like that? I've had to just set up all of my OBS settings, so please do let me know if it is coming out weird. We're just starting to see a large amount of people come into local. We have just surpassed the 2,000 in local, so it seems that there is a large amount of people wanting to show up for this fight. You can see there the fighter swarm from all of the various carriers at the top. Most notably from Pandemic Horde and NC seem to have the large majority. Floating down towards the Keepstar as per normal, and in comes the Pandemic Horde Raven fleet, which we were accustomed to yesterday during the Keepstar kill. It's just me in chat at the moment, talking. There are a couple of other listeners, but hopefully a bit later on we'll have some other people join in. The local is just about to hit 2,100 people, and Tie-Dye is already reaching its maximum. The Goonswarm fleet has been in here for about an hour already, so they've already been set up. There is a Praxis fleet in amongst those red dots, as well as a Ferox fleet. I'll be interested to see if we see any Rokes as we did yesterday, but there you can see there's a large number of Praxis. So I imagine they may be running a Smartbomb Praxis like we did and saw yesterday. We also see a lovely fire coalition. Jackdaw fleet came in, so they were pinged out a little while ago. So they're here to support the Raven fleet from bombs. So the Jackdaws will have defender launchers on them, ideally to stop bombs from getting in. Yeah, John the Hoarder said in chat that he wishes PC didn't die. He's missed all the fun. That is true. These fights, you could consider them fun, but with tie-dye, a lot of them have issues. We've just seen there, that was the Keepstar's Doomsday going off. So likelihood is there it is bouncing between some of these Rokes from Test Alliance, which have shortly just then turned into Rex and capsules. So that was the first Doomsday we've seen from this Keepstar. I imagine there will be many more of those to come. I'm just going to put the setting back on for turrets and launchers so we can see what various people are using. Because I imagine these Ravens will obviously be cruise missile fit, but I'd be interested to see what those Rokes were fit with, or whether they were just designed to absorb the Doomsday. So far, the damage is paused on this Keepstar. So, showing all brackets, so you can see that that is just the Raven fleet applying that damage, because the fighter swarm is currently still on the way down. See there, the large majority of the fighters launched from those carriers, safely tethered up to the top. We see there the fighters are now moving, so they're no longer heading towards the Keepstar specifically. They look to be reassigned to help protect these Ravens. So you can see they're slowly all changing their direction. Tie-dye is hitting around 56%. It's holding still around that area, so I imagine the fighters are not going to be shooting the Keepstar just to help with the attackers in terms of reducing the amount of tie-dye they will have to contend with. There's a couple of structure bombs being launched from the Keepstar. They will hopefully proceed and find their target. The structure bombs are different than standard stealth bomber bombs because they are only designated for one person. If that person leaves grid, then those bombs will just continue to float until they expire. They will not detonate if another ship is at close range to them. So as this is the first reinforced timer, the armor is vulnerable on this Keepstar. The timer is a lot shorter than we've seen in previous fights. This time is only 15 minutes at the start, and 30 minutes is for the structure. So the defenders, the Imperium in this case, will only have to prevent damage to this Keepstar for a grand total of 15 minutes. On the screen there, you can see it's already had over 1.5 minutes, or just under 1.5 minutes of timer go through. So there is only 13 minutes 37 left before this Keepstar will repair. So we may see some changes in these fleets, and they may be able to prevent the damage coming in from that. So different then was the fleet yesterday. Goonswarm did deploy dreadnoughts. Currently, I haven't seen any dreadnoughts from the Imperium. There is a fax on the station. But it'll be interesting to see if they deploy similar tactics to yesterday, or if they've changed up in how they were doing things. So there are two more Keepstars and Fountain, two Keepstars and Fountain, sorry, including this one. So there is the Y-2 and this KVN Keepstar. Y-2, we previously saw an engagement where the Imperium was able to defend. Um, this one is the second attack that the attacking force has done. So after this one, there will be a timer if they are able to reinforce it again. This is the second to last one. Hey Nick, and hello Caleb. Saw you in chat there. So far, during the whole there have been three Keepstars killed in Fountain, I believe, three or four. I know that one in G95 did get unanchored. So, but there are also still plenty of opportunity to get on other kill mails, especially for Keepstars with Delve being on the menu. Once Fountain is cleared up, it will be, I believe, the attacking force is planning on pushing through into Delve. So. So far, there's not really been too much movement from the Imperium. They're just kind of keeping tethered. A few of the interceptors have been heading in towards that Raven fleet, but so far they just kind of seem to be each holding their own ground. So we're interested to see once the fleets have finished moving and everything's gotten situated if there will be changes that go on. Like I said previously, there is a lovely Praxis fleet set up here. Let's have a look at these guys, make sure. These Praxis do not have any weaponry fit, so it's very likely these are smart bomb fit. Like I say they brought more here than they did yesterday. Yes, Nick asked if the Keepstar is vulnerable. It is vulnerable and it is currently being attacked and paused. The time was paused at 13 minutes. So here we can see what we saw yesterday towards the end of the fight, which is the Raven fleet with their fighter and jackdaw protection, as well as I believe there is a small number of Ferrexes that may be in amongst these, but their large protection will be coming from that fighter swarm from the carriers.
Hey, Sully.
Hey, Caleb. Yeah. So, Caleb, how am I coming through on stream? Am I coming through okay?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if stream can tell me if my audio is good or if it needs to be taken up a bit. Because I am today upgraded with a brand new mic. Because Metal kept teasing me, and then the missus said, "Buy one." So it
Nix
looks
has
like
said audio is a-okay, which is good.
perfect. So have you talked about the fact that there seems to be new steps and stuff?
I've spoke about there is very well. There's only a few fighters that have actually attacked the Keepstar. A large majority of them are defending that Raven fleet. So I think the attacking force realised that the tie-dye fights
Tie
are
dye.
not fun.
They want to keep the tie dye down, and that's why they are shifting to different damage application, right?
Yeah.
And now they're bringing rocks as well. It's like okay,
Yeah, we did see some Rokes. There was there wasn't many in that group. We did see
100.
them get Doomsdayed. There's a group of 6 or so, I believe, in the fleet. But yes, there is a full Roke fleet there as well. So let's have a look and see what guns they're using.
I think our D scan before I let the boys that died and cover things themselves. I think the last numbers we had was two full Raven fleets and then about 140 rogues.
Yeah, it does. They look to be railgun fit. Same thing we saw yesterday. I did also just see a ship name in local, but I'll be interested to see if they are in system. So there is a D-scan for Jojo Russ. I was doing it as he's talking, and let's have a look and see in local. So locals are less than we saw yesterday.
Oh, and you have to do the rounds and check out the clothing like you did yesterday when you were checking out the skins.
Yeah, so far I've not seen too many skins. Ooh, he says as he immediately sees a raven with a skin. So this is the new Project Discovery skin, I believe.
Nice.
Yeah, I've been meaning to do Project Discovery, but unfortunately I was reasonably good at the previous ones. Latest one, I am
Are
definitely
you
not.
streaming?
Yeah,
Yes,
catching.
yeah, the stream's up for
It's
Catherine.
not showing up on the Discord.
It was pinged in the Discord.
Yeah, I
I
see it.
meant when you stream in the chat, it usually shows like a camera. Okay, so it's on the actual
Yeah,
channel.
I'm not. So yeah, the difference is that this is my first time actually streaming to the Talking Station's Twitch. So whereas I'm normally showing live on Discord, I'm actually streaming to Twitch straight
Got
away.
it. Going to Twitch now.
Well, Jojo, it's Horde space, right? And it's a Horde Keepstar. At least that's what we're being told. So
Yeah,
why would Init keep defending it?
yeah. Jojo said it in chat. For those that are just listening, because there are a few of you, I was told. Um, he said a total of 5 in it in local, and it makes you think. We saw
It kind of does.
we saw the same thing yesterday. Even with 3,000 in local, there was still only um, there was
40
less
or
than
50, right?
50 initiative and initiative mercs combined. So it is their old space. KVN is very close to where they used to live. However, I don't think initiative is willing to commit numbers into these fights just from the way they are running. So I hear some jumps coming in. Gonna have a look and see if I can see. So there is. Oh, there it
But
is.
does it make sense that maybe they have benched themselves a little bit and let the rest take over because they are like the ones that were fighting in the beginning of the prologue to war?
Yeah, it's a hard one to say. It could be that they are taking a break. Um, yeah, Jojo, we're not. It's just we're trying to be all sides. Yeah. So as I was saying, I think initiative are not so much taking a break from the war front, but I think they're being hesitant to invest numbers. Goonswarm is here obviously as it is their Keepstar. This is a Goonswarm Keepstar, so they are showing up it was not pinged as a max form for Goonswarm, as far as I'm aware. So they are just here to cause more of a nuisance and try to prevent the attackers getting a walk, because that's the big thing I have noticed with the Imperium is after the first couple of Keepstars, they just let die with no real defense. Now, even if they do lose the objective, they're still causing pain for the enemy.
Oh, what's
Are they sinoing in ships?
Yep.
From what I can see.
So this is a Roke and Raven fleet from Goonswarm coming in. So locals just gone up to 2400. Let me make
nice?
some screen space so people can see.
Well, if I'm remembering correctly, we had two that was pretty much completely not contested at all. Then we had one harassment. Then we had YTAC 2 fumble, and then we had decent run yesterday where Pappy basically reached the objective in the way that was supposed to be expected. Right, that's pretty much what's also expected today, because there is not that much counterplay to these things when you can't bring in the big toys.
Yeah, so um, as Kelly said, it's just more preventing them from getting a free kill, making it so they have to delve into it. Because we heard yesterday from Vily that there is loot in these structures. The Keepstar yesterday that died dropped 7 billion, as well as the salvage of a Keepstar is between 15 and 20 billion on average. So if you give them a walk, then they are just profiting 30 plus billion. Whereas
Yeah,
yesterday, I believe it was a fairly neutral fight at 20 billion each. So we see the
yeah,
Keepstar Doomsday going off.
and the thing was that in the fumble, the 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 loot left on the field actually shifted it to 120 versus 80, right, billion
Yeah,
on the esport side. So there's just you can say what you want. That they're not really committing in the defense or not really trying hard enough, but they're not making it easy. And I would say defense wise. I think Imperium is kind of winning because these are almost unwinnable fights. So the fact that they're showing up outnumbered 2-1 or 3-1 and managing to get equal ISK war numbers. That's like that's applaudable, right?
yeah. It's an easy thing to say that initiative aren't here because they don't care, or initiative aren't here because they just don't want to fight. They're not invested in this. But even though Goomswarm is invested in this Keepstar, but it also has 63 other Keepstars, they're still showing up with fairly good numbers. Obviously, it's not their max forms, but it does put the attackers on their toes. It makes the attackers have to manage
Yeah.
things. There has to be a jackdaw fleet to protect these ravens. The ravens need that fighter support from the carriers.
Yeah,
So
you can say of all the keep stars in Fountain, almost half of them were scooped and taken down and removed, and then the rest have pretty much been left to die, but not for free. That's pretty much what they've been saying. You could have two for free, but the rest ones the rest of these you're gonna have to actually put in some effort and show that you can take us down. And I think there's been really good play from both sides, and then really funny mistakes. So we are definitely entertained, but I still feel like this is still just the number girl walking around the ring. I'm still waiting for the actual fight.
currently in the system, Goonswarm plus Bastion and TNT make up 750 pilots, with Pandemic Horde, NC, Test, PL. They make up what's that? About 1,250 pilots plus the various other um, alliances here from the attacking force. So
Wow.
Goonswarm are not that outnumbered.
No, definitely not the same numbers as we've had
No,
the other fights, right? This is almost not even 2-1.
no, it's not even 2 to 1. It's like one Goonswarm pilot is one and a half of the attacker, which
Yeah.
at this stage is actually quite a really good balance for them. So we do know that Goonswarm have a Rogue fleet that has come in. They have a larger than yesterday Praxis fleet, Caleb. I don't know if you saw on stream, but we did have a look at them. It looks like that Praxis fleet has doubled um, which could cause quite a bit of nuisance for the attackers if they are able to deploy it correctly.
But you were mentioning yesterday that it's very important what type of fit the praxises actually use with the smart bombs, depending on what they're trying to apply to, right?
Yeah, so if we take a look at, say, the Raven, um, it's unlikely they'll kill a Raven with smart bombs, so we'll just take a look one with an adequately named Pop Goes Your Keep. So these Ravens will be fit to cope with these holes, but in standard, you'll see there on the shield, they have a 0% EM resist on shield, and 20% thermal, 40% kinetic. So a lot of people will think it's best to do EM damage to this ship. However, most, in fact, pretty much every alliance I know that uses a Doctrine ship will plug any EM hole or explosive hole through their armor. They make a fit that can resist on that. So whereas if you pick a resistance, say that's kinetic or thermal, those resists rarely change because you don't think to over tank that resistance. So you go from having a hull which will be patched unless they really are flying bad fit ships to a standard damage that not many people change. So if you hit kinetic, you know you need to do X amount for the base resists, which don't really change that much. When you add on things like an invulnerability field, it won't affect the kinetic resistance as much as it does the others. So during the Horder said, seems like the goons' main goal is just to make the attackers bleed, like what they said they're going to do at the beginning of the war, if I remember right. Haven't been online in a month or so. So that is correct. At the beginning of the war, it was stated from the Matandi that it would not be easy fights for them.
Well, to me, it feels like barbed wire, right? It's like roll back and apply barbed wire and speed bumps.
Yeah. So that was stated, but we did see the opposite happen in Fountain. We did see the initiative putting up a rather good stonewall defense, deploying their supers and titans into D4, the entrance system into Fountain, from Meridia. So they did put up that stonewall. However, after the initiative carrier loss, there was a change in pace from the initiative. They no longer used supers and titans under the fear of a large dread bomb in range, and since that time, it's just pretty much been a steady progression until initiative called for the withdrawal from Fountain, and they moved their assets from IGE out to Y-2 and subsequently down into Delve. Since then, that was before the J5A Keepstar and before the IGE Keepstar. Both of those were minimal defended, if any. So it was a very odd change in the pace from being spoken of it's going to be a stone wall to there wasn't any defense. I think now we are closer to Delve logistically. So Goons don't have to worry about being caught on the way as well as getting to the fight and from the fight. I think now they are in the position where they can bring these numbers. They can bridge their fleets in using Titans into the systems to save on gate travel.
And this is where it gets exciting to see where they're actually going to try and poke, right?
Yeah.
What route are they going to take? Are they going to try to take the pearly gates, the door just here in Fountain, or are they going to go around and sneak in by the Iridia gate, or are they going to try and go through Quarius? It's like all of the nine options available is at A. It's open. We can't really foresee this. There might be some strategic move with how I think Pappy has launched some Keepstars that looks a little bit like they are creating a route to use as a tag staging. But again, that might be a ruse. You can never know.
So it's very interesting you mention the Keepstar route because I do know of things that the Imps foe itself is not OBSEC, but however, seeing as I will be moving things in it, I'm not going to share specifics, but there is a change up in Keepstars that have been anchored, like you say, Caleb. There were, I believe, 6 or 7 anchored.
He leaked it himself, right? Really, pretty much mentioned them in order that the ones that had been launched, or maybe it was Killer. I can't actually remember. But the point is that they have been like leaked or mentioned, so it's not like a massive
No.
secret or anything. They are there, and I think they're pointing to Iridia, but I don't know. I'm still not entirely sure where they're going to try and punch through. It might be a little bit of a trick, and then they're going to try and actually go through Fountain. That would actually almost make sense to me.
So yeah, I know exactly the route, and I can say that it is pointed towards Iridia. However, there is 2 routes from where the end of the chain that I can see and I know of goes, of which
Yeah,
leads that 50-50 of which way do we go?
yeah, and then there's this geographical fact that just next to that entry point, right, is all that nice NPC space. It's like, are they going to somehow try to take advantage of that in some way? I'm kind of excited about the actual storming the gates. That's really where I'm keeping my eyes open and making sure that I have energy drinks ready and coffee and cigarettes.
Yeah, so it will be interesting when the storming the gates does happen, because for those that don't know, I am part of Razor Alliance, so I will be in the attacking force. The reason I am not currently in fleets is these fleets are um, tie-dye fest, which I am not a huge fan of, and I'm able to then jump onto organisations and broadcast at the same time, and not have to worry about keeping comms separate and sorting out audio mixes and things like that.
To me, it's just nice that something newsworthy is actually finally starting to happen in EVE Online, because I think we've been overfed the last 2 or 3 months, right? Something has always been happening, and then we had the Nyadia thing and the Provi collapse and the shift of ownership down there, and Amar is up in the air. There's just and all the high structure stuff with TTTs. There's so much stuff going on right now that is all completely unpredictable.
Well, a flurry of fire that has gone on stream there. There's, so I was looking to get eyes on the Roke fleet. So these Rokes are Railgun fit, as we saw yesterday. Um, Annoyingly, they're all positioned behind the Keepstar, which makes getting the visuals that annoying, because we just see black lines. We can see this Roke fleet is not tethered, so they are looking to be engaging the Ravens. We
Yeah,
have,
like they kind of tried yesterday, right?
yeah, and I believe the Ravens were just too mobile around. We also have
Yeah,
a Hurricane
they
fleet here.
pulled they pulled back, and I think you said that otherwise it's actually one of the only ships that can even remotely get in range of Raven fleets because of the radar guns, right?
There, the railguns on a Roke battleship with tracking and specific fits can reach out way beyond the warp range. We are seeing some trade-offs happen. We are seeing some Rokes get shot down. So we can see that they are engaging.
Yep, Seakill is saying Raven Rogue, Raven Rogue, Raven Rogue, Raven Rogue.
Yeah.
So almost like 1-to-1.
So we can see there, look, the Roke. Oh, that was perfect planning. The Roke just in front of camera. You saw that it had its shield effect. It then broke shields and was immediately removed from the field just from the incoming flurry. That is the incoming damage and flurry fire from the enemy.
Are they like really focus fire primarying like one at a time, or are they trying to apply damage to more than one ship at a time?
So generally in these kind of engagements, unless the command is given from your FC of free fire, it will be kill this target. It used to be times where the FC would sort A to Z and go down the list. So there is a lot of times where you had characters named Aaron A. Aronson, so they die first,
That would
and
be a suicide
well,
name.
um, yeah, there are, but that luckily did fall out a few years ago. But I did notice the other day that my Titan pilot is name begins with an A and flies the Avatar. So I'm happy that that is no longer a thing. But yeah, so pretty much it'll be the FC who is the only one that will be broadcasting targets. He'll broadcast, then the fleet will lock and fire. There will likely be 3 or 4 stacked up, so it'll be lock this one, lock that one, lock that one. They may call acronyms for names, but a lot of the time when there is spies and concern of spies in fleets, they will just call out this one and that one as primary and secondary, or whichever way they see fit, to make sure that there isn't any spies rebroadcasting those commands to Logi to enable Logi to lock and try to keep that ship alive.
And we are seeing one-to-one exchanges
Yeah.
pretty much on Seakill. It's you go, you go. It's like removing pawns from the chessboard.
Yeah. So with Rokes and railguns, especially, as well as Mimitar and artillery, is you get to this fleet size where you reach critical mass, which is the moment you call the target, you have X amount of pilots lock that target up and fire. Each of them does a certain amount of damage, and the ship just is removed in that tick. Because if you lock and have your guns ready to fire, the moment you achieve lock, everyone fires at once, and Logi don't have a chance to apply reps, and it just gets removed. So we see the Rogue fleet moved, and they are now still under fire from the Test Alliance Rogue fleet. So I believe this will be a change up that we saw from yesterday, in that Test Alliance didn't have a Rogue fleet. They just bought Ravens, and obviously Rogues do outrange the Raven fleet. So I think that was a change up we saw. Vily obviously not wanting to yesterday give away his secrets, but I believe that was in one of his plans of bringing their own, so that these Rogues are not moving out of impunity. They are now trading losses. You see there a large amount of fire coming in. And then we have the Rogue perishing as the explosion goes on.
So are both Raven fleets attacking the Rogues, or is one of them still focusing on the Keepstar?
So it would likelihood be that one Raven fleet is designated to just shoot the Keepstar. Um, with obviously a reduced timer, they don't want this Keepstar unpaused even for a few seconds each time, because if you unpause it for a
What's
few
tie-dye
seconds,
at?
it counts up. So tie-dye is currently sat at 29%. With these fleets moving around, um, tie-dye will be bouncing up and down from between 50 and up.
But this amount of activity, if there had been fighters uh, in numbers, we would see those horrible tie-dye numbers, right?
Well, it's not even just the tie-dye numbers. You can see here the Raven fleet from the attacking force of Pappy and Fire. They have fighters covering them, but because those fighters are not actively shooting, the server doesn't have to calculate damage on them, as well as obviously in PDS range, the server doesn't have to calculate PDS damage. So they're just there, but the server doesn't really need to update them, so they're just kind of sat in the corner with a large majority of the calculations being done from the fleets.
I'm almost inclined to say, and at a certain point, it might even make sense to maybe not care about tie-dye and apply those fighters and then get both Raven fleets to actually remove something like the rogues and everything else on field, right?
So that comes with the problem of if you begin to not care about tie-dye, we saw this in the fight we had yesterday, as well as in previous engagements where tie-dye is 100% or near off. Um, Obviously, we can only see 10% on the client, but you can tell when the server begins to really start to, I call it chuddering, which is just really getting impacted. Um, it makes the fight drawn out from, like Philly said, from 30 minutes to 3 to 4 hours for a fight, which doesn't benefit anyone um, due to real life commitments, obviously, and things like that. And if they did attack the Keepstar fighters, then there's nothing to stop the Ferox fleet that is here, or Goonswarm did initially bring in a interceptor fleet.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Earlier on, before the stream, they did bring in 200 to 300 interceptors. They could go and likely have free reign on fighters, which, if you kill enough of them, then the Keepstar becomes unpaused.
So you're saying they're going to play it safe and just do German football and stay
Yeah,
like that?
I believe that will be the tactic we see of them doing these trades whilst having their fleets apply damage to the Keepstar to keep it paused. So we do see there is Minakawas from the Imperium. This one being flown by Kalbu Buele, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And
The Feroxes are trying to take out some of the fighters still, right?
I
I just
believe,
saw a lost come up.
I don't believe so, because all the fighters are surrounding those ravens. So here we can see the vulture from Asher is receiving reps immediately. So even though he's not under heavy threat, Logis are keeping him repped up so that if at any point he does take damage, they will hopefully be able to catch him with those reps. Even if a large amount of the rogues start hitting him, in theory they may be able to catch him mid shots and therefore keep him alive. Because as you can see from the anchor position of these rogues, that he is their main anchor. So everyone needs to make sure that he stays alive and well. And obviously we have the Minakawa here in triage, as seen by the blue effect, repping up these battleships, making sure they stay alive, because as they take damage, they want to ensure they don't get obliterated off the field. You can see, just even at the distance, you can see a large amount of permaband logos coming in.
Nice.
So one comment I did have offline about the Rogue is there are only a few good skins for the Rogue, which is why we see most of them using permaband, because permaband is considered one of the best skins possible.
All right, I'm here to join you guys.
Hey, Matt.
Hey, Merrill, you're a little bit boomy, but that might just be me.
No, I was talking right into the mic. How's this? Is this better?
A little bit better. I'm checking you down manually.
This should be.
Oh yeah, I had you boosted. Also, I bought a new mic, so
Yeah, you sound so much better. Now people will be. When's Caleb going to talk again? This is a contested fight.
It is indeed. We're seeing in this fight what we saw previously, which is the Ravens are protected by the fighters. The fighters aren't directly engaging, but the spin up we have seen is Test Alliance have brought their own rogue fleet into battle, so they are not all in Ravens. They did bring a fleet of rogues, likely to tackle the Goonswarm ones that have shown up, and that showed up yesterday.
I think we learned one thing: we're not necessarily going to see much of the fighter waterfall strategy anymore. I think they've given up on that one.
Yeah.
So Sully, check your mic and Caleb's mic just to make sure it's just under the red. They're saying you're quiet.
Let me see if I can boost it.
Audio low for Caleb and Sully.
I don't believe I am able to boost mine anymore. So let's have a.
No, it's tricky. There's like 3 different places to boost, and one affects the other. So does this Keepstar? This Keepstar belongs to who?
Goons. It's got a
Actual
nice
Goons
little
one?
bee on top of it.
KVN, this is a big one. This used to be like the southern staging point for, I wouldn't call it a staging point, but it was like the southern stronghold in Fountain. And this had jump bridge that would go all the way to the north. So basically this was the one of the cities on the road, the main road in Fountain. Kind of an industrial town. Not much happening there.
This is a very brave Ferox.
Who's piloting?
Nox, Nemesis, and the Ferox. Either he's very brave or is in the wrong position. Because that is one blue Ferox. Extremely out of position, but he is no longer there. Look, I did manage to find another setting to boost my mic, so I have turned it up a little bit. So hopefully that's a bit better. But I am the unfortunate one where I don't have a boom mic. I have just a standard Corsair headset.
Yeah, you sound great to me. Maybe you guys are fine. I'm just too loud.
So we are seeing some very odd things occur with NC Dot. So here at the top of the Keepstar, we just see their Osprey.
Are these guys just lost?
Yeah, I believe so. Maybe they think they're in the wrong Keepstar. It's
Maybe they warped back and the fleet took off. Like they warp out and they warp back to where they were and they end up being
but
left alone.
yeah, we've not
Seems
seen.
like there's more goons than NC or the attacking force.
Yeah, so we'll do another local scan. But the odd thing with that matter is they've not really moved around that much. So we have 717 goons, plus 77 Bastion and 34 TNT. So that is 840 Goon Swarm / Imperium. And we have 500 Pandemic Horde, 282 NC, 235 Test. So we are set in.
Almost equal.
So that's 900 plus 100 Pandemic Legions. So that's 1,000 from PL. It's not too far off of equal. Now this is an ominous point. Could this have been a mistaken warp? Or are they trying to coax something out? However, these jackdaws have since been bubbled in the heart of the Keepstar. It'll be interesting to see what's going on here, because if this Keepstar was to use its PDS, then it would start doing incredible damage to these ships. However, with its own rogue fleet, it may not be able to, because obviously with fear of killing the rogues.
What fleet was that?
So that is a fraternity, and Panfam Jackdaw fleet, what I can tell. This may have some impact on them. So we see
look
the
at those bubbles
practice
go
fleet.
up. Look at those
walking up.
bubbles go up. It's amazing.
They have since spread out, so we do know that obviously they aren't wanting to be attacked. I can't tell.
Did you notice the spread of the tackle? How those bubbles were all separated? They weren't all coming from the same place. That's some good tackling.
Yeah, so I can tell the PDS is firing from the Keepstar. It may be very difficult to tell that on stream, but there are small orange lines coming from the Keepstar, so the PDS is firing. But here we do see.
Were they trying to take out the Praxises?
I think they were baiting the Praxis out in that situation, because those Praxis obviously now can't leave, and that Ferox gang has just whooped down.
Yep.
However, these Praxis haven't attacked. They are still tethered, so they are still safe. But these fleets are not. So this Hurricane fleet is now at the mercy of this Ferox fleet, with the Praxis gang being unable to do anything.
So it's a bit of a block move. What is it that they don't want them to go out and apply damage to? Why is it that they're actually trying to block them?
I think these Feroxes are just trying to cause disruption for the Rokes and the Hurricane fleet that's here. There we can see these micro jump drives effects from these Rokes and Ravens. At this stage is just a giant ball.
Wow.
Because Tie-Dye, since these fleets are moving around, Tie-Dye is now at maximum. So
look at that.
We do see this this snake appear, where all these micro jump drives are very slowly spinning up and getting these ships to safety.
It looks so cool. That whole interference bubble pattern.
We do see the Praxis starting to smart bomb.
No, they can't be tethered in doing that, so they're taking a chance.
This I could be wrong, but if we're going to comment on a little bit of the meta play, this feels like Killah has been moved into position of Sky Marshal and taking proper charge.
It's hard to say. So here we can see these Ravens and Rokes appearing out in safety, or relative safety.
I think Killah Bee has always been Sky Marshal. It's just that one fight he didn't do it. Somebody else stepped up, and it wasn't coordinated as well. Probably because it wasn't the same team doing it. The YTAC 2 incident, we'll call it.
Well, from all that he said, and it just feels like he's more. It's more his flavor of play, right? It feels more aggressive. Let's not have any tie-dye. Let's move around. It just feels like his play more than say a pre-planned strategy.
That is a Doomsday there from the station itself.
What did it get?
2, 3,
did it get pickles?
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 battleships have since been, or 10, I believe it's 10, have been absorbed. So the question is, do we see any of those little orange glows for battleships soon to disappear? Or are these Rokes set up designing to tank it?
I don't think they can tank that, can they? I think Capitals can't even tank that.
I think there's a method that you can make it so they can really take a heavy hit, but I don't know if it's possible with Rokes since the resistance change.
Oh, interesting. Well, that would be a very interesting development, a rock absorbing Doomsday, or a Doomsday absorbing Roke fleet. You can still see the shadows or the remnants of the electricity going between the ships.
Yeah, with tie-dye firmly at maximum, everything is very much slowing down.
So what I've heard from people who are participating in this fight, that this is a very layered and interesting fight that's going on today. A little like yesterday, but maybe even more so.
It'll be interesting to see. Those rocks haven't exploded yet, so I'm wondering if they did get away and tank it, or if that is just the Eve server struggling. I think I just saw their icon disappear, so I think they are. Yeah, there they go. So they are now detonating. That's one thing that was noted in talking with Vily yesterday, is that when engaged close range to the Keepstar, they were unable to use their Doomsday effectively because of fear. The Doomsday doesn't specify whether it's a friend or foe, and where they was using capitals, the Doomsday would have hit a battleship and immediately bounced to the capital ship in close proximity, or the battle cruiser, and again bounced the close proximity ship. So it's very interesting that they are now using this Keepstar Doomsday. The moment is off cooldown, as far away from friendly forces as possible. So they are deleting groups of Roke as they can. Let's head
Well,
down and check out.
Group being like 5 or 6 at a time. It's not much, but it's something.
Yeah, so let's go have a look. So we still have this Ferox group here. Not really trying to look like they're trying to get out of the Keepstar range. I'm not sure if this was a mistake with an FC or if there was some plan here. But these Feroxes look to be firmly embedded themselves. And again, we have the NC Ferox fleet over here, next to this Rogue fleet. So this will be interesting if they... Oh, so we are seeing some smart bombs come out. So these are thermal smart bombs from these
Thermal.
Ravens.
Yeah. Heat damage.
So this is an interesting point where those Ravens we've seen with these Rogues, they could have assumed they was cruise missile fit. But if we take a look at them, there are no launchers on this Raven. It is full smart bomb fit, so these Ravens are smart bombing these Feroxes.
Wow.
To be clear, who are the Feroxes and who are the
So
Ravens?
the Feroxes are, in this instance, NC. So very much I would expect Killah Bee to be in this fleet. And obviously these Ravens being Bastion and Goonswarm, I believe. So this could be quite a devastating blow to this NC fleet.
How do they compare to the Praxis's smart bombs?
So
Strength-wise.
the Raven is a very large hull in itself. It is smaller than the Praxis, so the overall damage area will be slightly less. However, I think it's a good change up because Ravens and Rogues you would expect to see in a group, and unless you specifically look at the individual ship, like we just did, and notice that there's no launchers, you would expect them to just be the same setup that Test Alliance are using. So these Ravens being smart bomb does have quite an odd fact where, as we see NC with their Felxes, are in close proximity here, taking what would imagine heavy smart bomb damage.
But they're not as good at the whole perma blinky thing, right? They're not as tanky, so they can't smart bomb as long as something like the Praxis or the Macarial, right?
So it's a very odd thing. So we are seeing two different damage types here. So we are seeing the orange for an explosive smart bomb and red for thermal. So this would be that they are primarily doing thermal damage to apply to the shields of the Feroxes, whilst having the explosive smart bombs to go through the armor of the Feroxes, which would not have been changed from their stock values, which will be weak to explosive. So this combined will ensure the efficient way. In terms of their tank, they will be specifically set up to tank those two damages. Not so much damage from a full fleet. So they may be very weak to EM and not have their EM hole patched. The interesting thing will be is with the Rogue fleet, the Rogue fleet will not be set up to tank it specifically, so they will start to take heavy damage. We can see there some of the Rogues at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
Their shields are not blue anymore. They are slowly fading towards orange, which means they are getting low shield.
Yeah.
And Feroxes are shield ships, so once you go through the shields, it's pretty fast to haul.
So the real question will become, what is the Ferox fleet likely to fall before the Rogues do?
I don't see them aligning out or anything. Like, I don't see any movement on the Feroxes. They're applying damage right now.
Yeah,
That's that last guy you have highlighted there is from Evol. That's Evolution Corporation. It's one of the oldest corporations in EVE Online. It was the center point of the Bob Band of Brothers Alliance a long time ago.
so
With Reikoku, Dice, Finfleet.
here we can see Killah Bee with his unskinned monitor. Doesn't even have the Concord police skin.
There he is.
So he is the anchor for the NC fleet.
His Ferox is under pressure right now from those
So
thermal ravens.
yeah. So Cappy, just to fill you in, NC warped their Ferox fleet into the Imperium Rogue fleet. However, in that fleet were Ravens that have since started smart bombing the NC Feroxes. So we're beginning to see now where some explosions are coming in, which I can't exactly tell who from, but
Well, if you think about that, go ahead.
I was just saying that Killah Bee is moving away from the group. However, these Feroxes are stuck, it would seem, in their smart bomb range, so they are slowly moving out. But I think with tie-dye, the explosions that are due to come from them are just in progress, so to speak.
Think about this. Play and counterplay, and then counterplay. We're like 3 levels in.
Yeah, I personally would have not suspected these Ravens in these Rogue to be Battleship. It completely did surprise me. It's a very smart plan, and I'd like to say I'm pretty good at thinking outside the box for fleet ops. That is beyond my comprehension. That was such a level deep that very well done to the Imperium who thought of that. It's going to be unfortunately a one-trick pony. I don't think they'll fall for it every time.
Can we
But
get back to the dissing of and being biased, because they did the same on INN earlier when they were applauding the amazing warp in of the Ravens, like completely impervious to bomb runs when they do it like that, and it was like perfect.
so it's the bias of we're commentating the Imperium and they're commentating the
Pretty
attackers.
much. Who made this swap? What's the double agent stuff? I'm being confused.
We just appreciate good gameplay. It's when we have to fight back the narratives that people start feeling we're biased or not.
Yeah, like we had it earlier. Someone was saying that it's not a troll stream. It's like, no, we're trying to be as neutral as we can, because you have to
fans of the game.
commentate on that was a very well thought plan. Because
Starting to see explosions.
yeah, so we are starting to see some blues disappear and some explosions. So
And I do get the feeling that this reflects something that is close to my interest. The people that love this type of stuff, like the big fights, the big wars, the complicated play and counterplay, they've pretty much been starved for quite a long time, right? Of actual engagements. They've had a little
Mic
bit of
off.
skirmishes here and there, and then they had the uncontested move and the glassing of the north. But other than that, it's been like
Other
everyday
than
life,
UARs.
right?
Well, no. These guys have been fighting for years now. At least it depends. I mean, some of these players are new. Some of these players are 10, 20 years into the game.
Yeah, but everything has changed since then, right? Everything is always new and Eve. So you don't get to play with the toys unless there's some conflict to do then.
Well, this game is very interesting in that there's a lot of roles for people to take that you can get specialized in and get really good at. So you can pick probing, you can pick tackling, you can pick logistics, you can pick whatever. Some people pick DPS and strategy, and those are FCs. And so what you're seeing is play and counterplay that's based on recent history, not ancient history. Because yes, everything has changed. The dynamics have changed. The way the ships are used has changed. The way the modules work has changed, and everything influences everything else. So what you're seeing is recent adaptations to recent events, like the Raven fly-in to avoid the bombing run. That was a recent lesson learned. They knew it, but they didn't
almost like the
execute it
day
well.
before, right?
Mic
Yeah,
on.
well, they knew that, but it was executed poorly, and they remembered can't execute it that way. You got to do it this way, and that's why it was seen as a good move. What we're seeing today is maybe based on the Praxis smart bomb failed attempt that we saw yesterday, and you might be seeing some reaction to the fact that they went after the Rokes. So they said, well, I'll tell you what, why don't we put that smart bomb concept inside of the Rokes? These are the kinds of mutations that happen for every single battle, at least these big ones.
And this is where it becomes this interesting play of doctrine directors, and then the whole Tinkerer R&D, then the Sky Marshal, then the actual FCs, and then the play, counter play, and figuring out, okay, what is it that they actually try? What are they trying to do with the, oh my god, it's that kind of fleet. They're going to do this. What are we going to counter with? And then there's adaptation from fight to fight, right? It's just, this is the exciting thing about EVE Online, I think.
We sitting here selling the explosions.
Yeah, so we are still seeing some explosions come in. They did briefly, the Rokes did start shooting Killah Bee's monitor. However, I think they realised that there's still one Logi alive, so it's not efficient to shoot at him. But like the Matt and Kev was saying, is these fleet fights do not happen every day until this war. Like, they were a very rare occurrence. And
Now look at House. Go ahead.
And to touch the point I think Matt was going to make is just how much it has changed. Before it was carriers at the max range swarming down fighters, so then the Imperium developed a strategy for dealing with that. So then they brought in the Ravens, which has been a tried and tested Keepstar killer. However, Goonzorm then began to counter that with Rokes. So then Test Alliance brought their own Roke fleet today and realised some lessons that were learned yesterday of they're trying to attack them. So smart bomb battleships within the Roke. All of these small adaptations have only come about since this invasion because of lessons learned.
And then there's this
that are probably Feroxes that are exploding there in the middle. They were just smart by thermal ravens that were hidden inside the Rourke fleet. But you'll notice also, you look at the blues, right? They're spread out pretty well. That's an actual tactic to avoid being clustered. So if you're going to be bombed, you're only going to take 2 or 3 of them, not all of them.
Yeah, so the chances are the likelihood is once Killah Bee being the FC would have realised that, oh, that wait, they're smart bombing, he would have probably given the command of burn out, which basically means in any way you can, you want to move your ship away from them. So you see this starburst effect come in. It isn't efficient for Logi, especially if they're using Basilisk Logi, which require cap transfers, and Logi as well. If you have one Logi on one side of the fleet, it can't easily supply Logi reps to the other side due to the optimal ranges.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed out that starburst. You can all see they're coming from the same center point, and that is where the where their cluster was. So they came in together as a ball, and they end up having to starburst out, which spreads the fleet out. It's not optimal, but you do that when everybody needs to. It's every man for themselves.
Yeah, as we can see a note here, so there is a Ferox here with a command burst. Likelihood is he's just kind of as a backup burst, But another key note is you can see the bubble here going towards the edge. There is a point where it will stop expanding, and it may not reach some of these ships. So the command boosts also will not be full range. So we can see here these Feroxes are just outside the range of that command burst, so they didn't receive that bonus. Especially since the changes that they have done with the command destroyers having a bonus to the strength and command ships having a range. It's quite an interesting concept that has come in.
Oh, I just wanted to take us back a little bit to the whole starvation thing, which I think is a factor, especially because many of the upper FCs and people that like this kind of stuff, I think they're also very much a Venn diagram overlap with the people that like the NT. We haven't really had the same NT activity for quite a while now. So we're getting some now, but they've been a little bit starved. So people that really like that are also most likely getting their itch scratched right now.
So in Twitch chat, I've just put in the updated local scan and updated D scan so people can see what ships are on grid and in range, as well as what pilots are in system. So we can see there that Goonswarm still have 690 pilots plus their Bastion and TNT makes it 800 pilots. And then we have Panic Horde at 485. Test Lions have gone down to 229 and NC Dot are down to 227.
Wow, a lot of Ravens dead, a lot of Rooks dead.
So previously to that Ferox fleet going in, NZ Dot had 282 in system. So it's quite possible they lost 60 pilots either in that bomb or since the last local scan was made.
Am I wrong in almost feeling that this might actually end up being a little bit expensive? Because the exchange of rogues and ravens, that was what ticked the cost and the ISK stuff quite high on the bit of a fumble, right?
It's an interesting one because rogues themselves, when fit, aren't the cheapest ships. They are. If you lost one rogue to one Ferox, then you are losing the ISK war. However, it's an interesting one because we aren't seeing Goonswarm's numbers drop all that much. They've gone down 20 in system since the last D-scan. So it could be that although there are some rogues being lost.
Well, it's just that every time they do that exchange, right? Let's say a Raven for a rogue, right? It's 500 million and 3 to 400 million fits every single time, like the die. So it's a billion for each time there's this peasant exchange.
That plays into the overall strategy for the Imperium, which is make them bleed for their victories. They're going to win, but let them bleed for their victories. At a certain point, they will run out of blood.
And especially because, well, I get the feeling that at least Killah does not really like costly things and losing the score, especially not when it's, well, in the cases that we've had where they were completely outgunned. But this is a 1-to-1, so this is a lot more acceptable that you end up with a bit of an equal ISK balance, right?
I did just notice something very interesting. Carneros was flying one of those ravens. So I just posted in Twitch chat one of the Ferox is going down to ravens, and I noticed the name of Carneros. So he is currently in system. I do believe he did die because I saw him in a burst on the kill mail.
We just want to make you all suffer.
Indeed. But we saw him yesterday too, right? We were actually looking for him.
We saw him yesterday, but I don't think he was undocked. So I wonder if he's out now.
Vicarious suffering is good enough.
Yeah, so he asked.
You get wiped, Victor.
Okay, now I have to get back to making you all suffer. I'll be back later.
Oh, he's reshipping and going back.
So we can see here that there are 3. Let me hide this for now. We can see that there are 3 main Imperium forces at the moment, gathered up in different positions. So we have the Hurricane fleet, their Rogue fleet, which is currently removing, as well as a Jackdaw fleet. So they are beginning to reposition. We do still have the Praxis fleet somewhere in this mess, but they are beginning to reposition. So we can see here these Jackdaws are bouncing off of the Keepstar. Now there's the Praxis fleet up on the left. So the Keepstar's timer still is paused. It has not changed in its timer. It hasn't moved at all. So it is still being paused at 13 minutes. We're coming up to 50%, but here we see a Sino being lit for Goonswarm and the Imperium, bringing in backup ships. So this
They can't afford to let any pressure off this Keepstar. 13 minutes, it can tick down quickly.
Yeah, but they have massive damage they can apply to it, right? Especially when the tie-dye is not toxic.
Yeah, so the big thing with these fights, with tie-dye, it's only this system that's affected. Maybe a few neighbouring systems that are reduced. However, with this system having the large majority of the fighting, it doesn't really slow down too much outside of it. So
if I'm not mistaken, they took the blockade down, right?
Yes, so there is not currently, as far as I'm aware, any blockade preventing the resupplies coming in, but it allows for the attackers and defenders the ability to go off, get podded out of the system, then come back in a new ship. So here we can see there is actually a mix of ships that have just hunted in. Nothing really specific. We have some Rogues, we have some Jackdaws, and we have some Feroxes. Now these will likely drop fleet they've come in on through their Sino and join back up with their respective fleet, so that any ships lost are replenished. So we saw a couple of Rogues die to the Feroxes when the Ravens were Smartbombing. So these Rogues are probably coming back in this Sino here, so they are going to get back into their engagement. The attackers will be wanting to do the same. However, I'm not sure on their attacking supply route if they are still based out of Iridia, in which case they'll then have to Stargate over, and whether there's any impact to them. But this is, like Caleb said, no one wants to let off of this fight. They want to ensure the pressure is on. So bringing these resupply ships back in, and these pilots have lost ships, bringing them back in, keeps the numbers high, keeps the threat of these fleets high. And so we still have the remnants of Killah Bee's fleet over here. Killah Bee in himself in a monitor is stuck in one of the bubbles. With a saber very close to him, so I imagine this will be the death of Killah Bee in his monitor.
Looks like there's a logistics helping him out.
So there's a Ferox and an Osprey here. The Osprey is a very unfortunate logistics in that it is only a T1, and so to fit them to be cap stable as well, it will likely only be running medium reps, whilst also using cap boosters. So it is limited time. It can't rep permanently forever. So we will see. In fact, I see it applying its reps to the Ferox rather than to Killah Bee. So we also do see the Keepstar is now engaging Killah Bee. So everyone wants this ship to be deleted off field. You see there, look, the Imperium Saber just hovering nearby, kind of giving the indication of, if you look out your window, you will see something which will never let you escape because of bubbles. So these ships are very tanky ships, even with a pilot who has next to no skills. Is it going to let me simulate, or is the server too heavy? I think the server load is just too heavy. But even with a pilot with very little skills, you can see there the resistance is 9,000 armor and shield before skills, all at 90% resist. This is a very tanky ship. So it being the last in its fleet to die, and as we can see here, it is third from last, with the other two ships not being too relevant in its destruction.
And a massively pretty ship. I think it's awesome. I love that model. I was going to ask you a little question if there's not anything extremely pressing happening. What's with all the off-doctrine ships in the system?
So, specifically, what ships are you referring to? Because there are a couple of odd things that you may not realize ships get used for.
Well, it's mostly the low numbers when there's like, why is there 4 Vigils and 3 Arazus and
Okay, so
3 Chengus? It's like weird numbers. It's like, why?
the Vigil is a starter ship, so we see things like the Vigil and the Hyena. Um, they get bonuses to specific things such as target painter or webs. So they're thrown in as pilots who are low skills will often use them, those that don't have T2 variants. And with that, it allows all pilots to be in all ships. But having a few of them in your doctrine means that they're going to be low enough priority that they won't be focused by the enemy fleet. If you have a fleet of, say, jackdaws, you're not going to focus the Vigil in that jackdaw fleet.
Okay, so they're like skill point alternatives that still can have a role. But can you then explain to me why are there 2 yachts in there?
So the yachts is just a D-scan of the area. So we could see the yachts could be tethered on the Keepstar, providing camera view. I don't know if INN, I believe INN will be streaming this. So the chances are they will be tethered on the Keepstar with a yacht.
Ah, yes. So it's their expensive version of camera 1 and camera 2.
Well,
You're being a little bit
I could
more
get them in
vague.
a yacht, but the problem is yachts can die easier than a stiletto. The Eagle Eye viewers noted at the start of the stream, I am missing half of my armor. Thank you very
Yeah.
much to I think it was Bastion that tried to get me on my way through. They were unsuccessful as normal, but I haven't had a chance to go and repair it because there's very few safe places for me in this region. Everyone wants to kill me.
And to chat, I don't think Killah Bee is that much into fashion, so he's perfectly fine without a skin.
I would imagine he probably has a skin for it, but it's being somewhat of a I don't want to use it just to be that one person that doesn't use a monitor skin, because primarily every FC will have a monitor skin. So being the only one that doesn't actually use the skin could be the token difference.
And I think you gave us the numbers of how tanky those things are yesterday, right?
Yeah, they're about 300,000 before you start looking at mainline skills.
Yeah, that's like almost ridiculous. You're gonna end up being almost within super range,
Yeah.
right? Hit point wise.
So we can
Eric
see
said
here
that you
the
can.
bonuses you get per skill level of the cruiser skill. For all cruisers, you get a bonus to hit points, armor hit points, and for armor, shield, and hull resistance. So with
Yeah,
skills, you could. I think this can reach up to 400 and 500k.
I think Eric's actually said that it has a theoretical maximum if you really bling it of almost close to 1 million.
Yeah. So the big reduction as well is the Minmatar Cruiser. Reduction in signature radius means that these things start to get very small as well. I think with max skills, this thing has the signature radius of a standard destroyer. whilst also being very tanky. Its purpose is to prevent the FC from dying. I just changed from chat because local is just being spammed with ease. Yeah, tie-dye is at 10%. But Kowalski in chat said that he hasn't got a command through in the last 10 minutes. It is getting to the point where tie-dye is reaching its complete maximum, and that it is now struggling. Prime
What's
example.
primarily causing that? There we go. What's primarily actually causing this?
So this is a prime example of the server really is chugging.
But what causes this issue right now when they're almost deliberately trying not to stress the server?
So the main things that will cause these effects is just the amount the server has to think. So we saw with the Smartbombs and the Ravens, the server has to do so many calculations from one Raven Smartbomb of every ship that's in range, doing the effects on the ships, as well as calculating the damage on the ships. That's for one of the Smartbombs. Then you have all of the 8 of the Ravens, plus all of the Ravens. It starts to scale exponentially. There we go. We have connection lost.
RIP server.
Let's see if I can get the client back on.
Connecting.
Fight goes to Goons. If the server has gone down, then by default, yes, Goons will have defended it, technically.
And Killah is going to be mad as hell.
It's a very odd thing, however, because the numbers weren't that crazy. There's only 2,300 pilots in the system before connection got lost. So it might just be my client has decided to give up the ghost.
No, the server crashed. There was some updating, and then that's probably why.
I guess we see there from Toxic Apollo that the server has indeed gone down. But it seems to be wanting to load me in. Yeah, just noted. Once we crashed, our viewer count dropped by 80.
This does not bode well for the future.
Yeah, it's the fact that the Keepstar fight is causing that is very interesting.
Let me just check if we lost all the eyes from all the other streamers as well, or if it's just us. Imperium is dead too.
So
What about Ron?
we've had someone else has reported that they were in KVN and they have gone down. We've had someone from Panic Horde who was in another system that has since gone down. So I think, yeah. So
Wow.
Taldoc asked or said, I guess I didn't know if ICSP have the system put into priority. I believe the system was put into priority. However, these servers still run on single physical cores, so there is a limit that they can do. And I think in this fight, it was just that limit was there. So. But the one interesting thing to note is what Vily said yesterday after the stream, in that even if the defenders were able to defend this, it would just be another time where they just go and reinforce it.
Okay, chat is saying that the server just kicked
Yeah.
3,000.
So to see there that I just had the message that KVN is currently loading. Please try again later. Yeah, so that is a node fail. So we'll see. I imagine there's the CCP hamster is running quite a bit. So KB, the main difference in this fleet that was from yesterday's, we saw Goonswarm shot with Rokes, whilst Legacy did not. That caused the Goonswarm Rokes to be able to outrange the Ravens, so the Ravens had to constantly be moving. We also saw in today's fleet more use of smart bomb battleships for both in the Praxis as well as within the Rogue fleet, as to deal with the NC Ferox fleet that landed on top of those Rokes. So Tusk Polo asked, does the keep timer still go down for the Keepstar when the server dies? The Keepstar timer is tied to real time. It does still tick down. I'm not sure how it's handled on a node crash. If the timer gets put back to how it was before the node crash, because CCP is aware that this is a potential risk to these fights. So I don't know if they have any specific plan or mentality on ensuring there isn't an imbalance in this. So KP just said he meant more on a technical standpoint. I think with today's fight there was just more going on in terms of there was more fleets. We didn't. So yesterday we saw up to 500 carriers. In this, we have only seen 200. So there is less carriers on grid, but also more fleets roaming around. So, Siebes, that's a very interesting point. Since the migration of the chat server, it isn't. I don't think it is technically possible to crash the client anymore. There used to be an abusive method years ago where you could have all of your pilots putting stuff into chat that would cause lags on the server, and so that's why one of the big changes that CCP moved away from their chat system was to prevent the abuse of that. So prevent people spamming local to cause it to crash.
Yeah, the chat server or the chat connections would just die,
Connecting.
and you might not get any chat if it
Yeah.
gets overloaded or anything. But I don't think we can overload them at all.
No, the chat service is hosted on AWS, and I know of one person who's caused it to crash, an AWS instance to crash, and I've caused it once through my professional work. However, I don't think the Eve chat will ever be in a position where it can cause that to fall. Knock on wood. So Ronnie's put here that NC dot pipe bombed Dave Archer's Jackdaw fleet. So that would explain why there's a large increase.
Right in the back looks like the servers crashed.
They're ripped, completely ripped. It basically vomited 3,000 or more players completely out of the game.
We have just seen a post from CCP Aurora that they are aware of the node death for the Keepstar timer of KVN-36. They are working on restoring the service to the node and will update as soon as possible. CCP are aware of this issue.
I think something similar happened like this in 2 years ago, right, in DO6 when I don't know goons tried to bomb. Was it Tez tried to bomb a GOTG Voltec fleet and then end up crashing that node as well.
Yeah, so smart bombs are unfortunately a very good mechanic to use in fights, but also they do create a large amount of server resource usage. So it's a very odd thing. Like we saw, prime example of when they are used to great efficiency. However, with it causing server issues. Yeah, so I just got linked a kill mail from one of the Praxis smart bomb battleships, and they are running Graviton smart bombs with specific tank. So I think this is the official first node death from this fight and this war. So I'm hoping this will be the only one we foresee, but it'll be very interesting on when the next flies around.
Well, that was hilarious.
And it happened just when you got back in, right?
What?
Well, you left here to go back, right? And then the service crashed. I'm not saying there's a connection, but smells like a connection.
Oh my god. You don't know the power of the 23rd best FC of the Imperium.
You're saying he did it?
No, I'm saying Ron USMC did it.
I was about to say the interesting thing there is, how did you become the 23rd best? Is like how many is there?
For sound our culture.
I just have an image in my head. I had someone messaged me on Discord saying the image that you need to see is a hamster just lying down on its hamster wheel. So, Amy Bradshaw asked the question: was the fight frozen in its last state when the server died? We don't actively know what state the server is at the moment for this node or the timer. It is possible for CCP to kind of roll back the timer and could keep it as it was. However, we don't know.
Not gonna
It is,
happen.
but it's kind of CCP was right on the case within minutes of the node going down. They've made a forum post. They are aware that it is possible to cause this to happen for every node and thus is abusive for every node, especially if you are the defending side. So there are
Well, I don't know.
mechanisms
Maybe
in
don't
place.
overload the grid. I don't know. I could be crazy like that. It's just my crazy fleet talking. Maybe don't overload the grid so much.
But it's like Peter said, it's very interesting that it's not the worst we've seen. Tydo was only really starting to get up towards the end. We saw Smartbomb battleships used yesterday with no real impact. There was obviously tie-dye spiking, but wasn't to this degree.
All I can say is I had 17-minute lock times towards the end there.
So I think we, at the moment, we're at the mercy of CCP to do what they are able to and what they feel is best for this node. It's kind of, unfortunately, one of the things.
At the same time, since some of you are listening in, we did promise you suffering and a puppy wood chipper.
All right, Victor, we're not into the whole metaphor thing here, or the narrative thing.
Well, I mean, the other guy was just spawning conspiracy theories, so I figured I'd reciprocate. But yeah, the fight was interesting, though. I thought, at least. To be on a more serious note, so I was over in Asher's fleet, and it was actually a pretty good time. There was a moment there when we were in a little scepters and we were trying to bring our stuff in, where a lot of us didn't really know, are we going to get through to even get to the fight? And I like that tension.
What was it like when you were in the fight?
So when we were in the fight, it was pretty interesting. I personally believe the decisive moment were those two Ferox fleets that came in right on top of us. But we were having a pretty decent exchange uh, during the first part of the engagement. I mean, some of our guys were getting kind of clobbered, but we were just watching that main enemy fleet, those Ravens and stuff on the other side. We were just melting them. It was like I couldn't lock fast enough.
Yeah,
and neither could half the fleet.
We saw when the Ferox fleets came in to the Keepstar's PDS range, we saw the Rogues that sat there, and then
Well,
those Raven smart bombs.
We weren't really sitting there. We were trying to get aligned and everything, but like I said, when I don't know if you were in the first or second Ferox fleet or anything, or had observation, but we started trying to lock up Feroxes when the first Ferox fleet landed, and by the time I was dead, about 14 minutes later, I think it was, I still hadn't locked up my first Ferox. We could not lock up anything, and I think the Smartbombs were the decisive factor there, because you're not worried about locking at that point.
Yeah, there's currently, for those wondering, on the forum post, people are highlighting the Imperium pilots who were piloting the Praxises and other smart bomb vessels. I think they may be trying to put a scapegoat on the smart bombs being the cause of this node crash.
You know, though, I mean, I believe we've heard that kind of stuff for years. You know, if it's not the smart bombs, it's the drones. If it's not, or actually, what's the order? If it's not the drones, it's the fighters. If it's not the fighters, it's the smart bombs. If it's not the smart bombs, it's, I don't know, the fireworks. You know?
Yeah, I think people, especially in Eve, need to find a blame. So, one argument is obviously if they didn't use smart bombs, then the server doesn't stress that much. Another argument is, well, Test Alliance and Legacy have had fighters anchored on those Ravens, not actually doing anything, just being a deterrent. If they're not there,
Yeah, it's not a wrong argument, though, in my opinion.
How far back do you dial that?
I really think that Ferox fleet, though, on our Space Enemy side, the two of them that came in, coupled with the Jackdaws, that was interesting. I think that's what cinched it
you're very
for
quiet,
the
Matt,
rogue
by the
fleet I
way.
was in. That was really well played.
Yeah, I was just saying that, you know, people say it's the drones, people say it's the smart bombs, if they hadn't done this, if they hadn't done that. And I was making a joke that, well, if they hadn't decided to take this Keepstar, there wouldn't be a fight either. There wouldn't be a server crash.
Yeah, it is one of these. Everything needs to combine to make a perfect storm for a node to crash. We are very fortunate in that these are not common occurrences. Nodes do not crash often.
Yeah,
So
you want to see Eve Online without crashes. Stop piling thousands of people into the same fight. Break it up.
Yeah.
Fight on different fronts.
That's kind of what I thought we were going to have a little bit earlier. I thought we were going to maybe it was going to develop into two simultaneous fights in different systems, but
yeah, the problem.
well,
comes
round
with,
2 we go. I just want to say, Toxic, if you're out there somewhere, good luck to you. Good luck to my space enemies. Let's have some fun.
It's right.
So Ariel just put in chat on TCP stream. They're saying it's your fault for bringing so many fighters. So yeah, there is. All sides are placing blames on everyone else because unfortunately it is one of the things. It has to be a perfect storm for it, and sooner or later something has to give in these fights. And unfortunately, it is more often than not the server because it's the only thing that is capable to give. The client, since we upgraded to 64-bit, is now very robust. So it used to be years ago where the client would run out of RAM or your system would run out of RAM. I remember my first Eve computer did quite often in a fight moan at me because it was running out of RAM. So yeah, so apparently the node has been restored, so we'll see if we can get on.
Great. By the way, I got a new camera. So I may show that a little later.
Yeah. Like I was saying before Victor left about fighting in two different fronts. Fortunately, with the nature of these conflicts, I don't think we'll ever really see a fight on two fronts. We saw that with PanFam attacking Imperium, Initiative, and Pappy attacking the Imperium directly. Or whilst NC Dot and Pappy and Fraternity were able to cause damage to the Initiative, the Southern Front was not able to spread in because of the number difference. With it just being one entity, we need both groups together to attack both groups because they're not equal footings.
One of the things that really surprised me yesterday was the numbers from Northern Coalition were like 425. The numbers from Goonswarm were 465. That is very different than the past. You used to have 4 to 1 in favor of Goon Swarm when it came to numbers of players.
Yeah, this fight was very close in terms of their battle. Both, like I was saying, up until this point, Goons were outnumbered 2-1, 3-1, 4-1 at the worst. This one they are very close to even, 1.5 outnumbered at the maximum. So, I believe we're getting somewhere. So this was a very interesting one. I don't know whether it's the attackers didn't bring enough or bring as many as normal, not so much enough, but as many, or if Guntun brought more. But it is very much a more even fighting ground for them.
Are you talking to me?
So just
Was, but I don't need them.
okay. So as you can see on the stream, we are now loading back in.
Not yet.
Local is rapidly climbing up, and the good part we are seeing here, it is not one-sided, it is both blue and red, and the timer is still going down.
Oh, that's going to be a big problem.
So the timer has not finished.
Still okay, so that's a good sign then. That means they froze the timer. Do you know what the timer is at?
It is at 7 minutes and 27 seconds.
So they lost 7 minutes in there. That's, I mean, the last time we checked, it was 15 minutes to go, right?
That is correct. So this is a very interesting site. As more and more people are loading in, the grid is obviously beginning to have some issues loading. But we are currently just seeing Jackdaw pilots.
They need to reapply right away. Make sure they stop that timer.
Yeah, so we can see the timer there, but there is still some things are different. Most notably, I don't see any other pilots on this grid.
Yeah, this might end up being contested if they don't make it so the timer is set at a fair place.
Yeah. But we are starting to see. I think the overview is currently still getting there, but say we are now seeing some ships undocking, popping into existence.
So for those watching, say, the video that are not that experienced with EVE Online, that timer ticks in real time. So when the server crashes, the question is, does the Keepstar keep progressing towards safety? It's completely it's a problem when the timer comes up and it's say for instance expired and the day is won by the defenders if there was a server crash. So in that case the attackers would be upset. It's also a problem if they put too much time back on the clock, saying you're overcompensating, and the defenders end up losing the Keepstar because CCP overcompensated and put too much time back on the clock.
Yeah. So we are seeing the Keepstar has just gone below 5 minutes, and we are now local is back up to 1900, and as people are loading in, the server is beginning to go, okay, I can start handling this again. We are seeing pilots loading into grid, loading into position.
There's a rush to apply damage to the Keepstar at this point by the invading forces of Pappy. They've got to get that clock to stop immediately, or it will slip away.
So the only thing we are seeing here is these ships are currently from Old Eve, where crashes were more common. These are all ships that are in limbo, which are they are technically dead, but they are not dead. So we don't get a board option or anything like that. They are just kind of frozen in time next to these wrecks. So these would have been the last ships to die in these fleets. But here we can see the test Roke fleet is beginning to form with 3 minutes on the timer, 3 minutes 50. So it could still be possible to pause this timer. I'll try and get us. That's probably the best position to see the timer there. Local has just gone over 2,000, and we can see that there are X's coming in local. The easiest method that people used to have to join fleets was to X in local. However, it's never really worked well when you have friendlies and hostiles doing the same thing.
Somebody should pick Y. Somebody should pick X.
Yeah. In my corporation, when I was in the Imperium, we used to play a game of how far we could get through the alphabet. We never got
Starting at the
past.
bottom.
Yeah, we never got past D.
All right, we're just recovering from a server close. Fighters are getting back on the field, player fighters.
Mic off.
Local is rapidly increasing. You're seeing a local
Mic
spike.
on.
Yeah, so locals up to 2100 again. Tie-dye is not at maximum at the moment. It is only at 29, so we will start to see more and more people load in. So there is some incoming fire from the attackers onto the Keepstar. So the big point now is there is 2 minutes left on this timer.
Oh my god, 2 minutes. Oh,
Is
there's
there
going to be a
enough
problem.
damage for them to apply to pause this timer?
I think if I can predict, that's not enough time for them to destroy this, and there's going to be a big fuss from the Pappy forces that took a lot of casualties to destroy this. I believe they were on their way to do it, even though it would have cost them. But to have a server crash interrupt their progress and set them back is going to cause a lot of problems for them.
So
You will hear a lot of criticism.
local is about the same as it was pre-crash. So it is now just a question of if they are able to have enough damage applied.
Well, local has gone crazy as people flood it to make it unusable for people.
Yeah, so we just see constant spam there. But we are seeing here more and more Basilisks logging in. Rokes. Again, we have
Those fleets are barely reaching where they were before. They haven't even started to launch their drones or apply damage or whatever.
Yeah, so we can't
by the time
see.
Yeah, by the time everybody gets back on field, this timer is going to end and the fight will be over. The battle will be over.
Yeah, we're seeing Ferox is at the moment just warping straight down to the Keepstar, not worrying about distance. They are just in a mad scramble to get this timer paused. So they have 20 seconds to do so.
Timer's out in 20 seconds.
So 15 seconds for a pause to come in.
It's over. They can't possibly put enough damage on it in that amount of time. Oh, I feel sorry for CCP. They're going to hear about this.
Killah's gonna be mad.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of complaining. This is not something that we haven't seen before. We've seen server crashes take away victories from groups that were winning. So I don't see you're going to see CCP buckle and change anything. But this is definitely a frustrating moment.
There is the repair animation. The Keepstar has repaired.
It's done.
It's-
It's
yeah.
over. Saved by a crash for the most part. You can still see that fleets are arriving back into the positions they were in while they were holding it down, holding down that timer.
This is a very interesting point, actually, because this Ferox fleet wasn't up at this Astro House. These Ferox fleets may have been engaged in the Keepstar. However, when the server began to crash, there may have been a fleet warp up. It may have,
Doomsday.
yeah, it may have been that process. But here we can see the Keepstar Doomsday going off.
Yeah,
the
a little
Ravens.
insult on top of injury right there.
Hello.
Killah Bee.
Speak of him, and he
What's
shall
up?
appear.
Hey,
Wow. How do you feel right now?
Pretty, how do you say it if you're in the mood to laugh? I don't know.
It's either you
Hysterical.
laugh or cry.
You're hysterical.
Hysterical, yes, I'm very hysterical.
It's where you're pulling your hair out laughing at the...
Nah, I'm not that stressed about it at all. It's fine, it's whatever. Like, oh no, it's not fine, that's bullshit, it's fucking retarded, but me complaining about it isn't gonna make it any better, so that's just what it is. CCP, dude, node crashing at 2,700 people in local. Okay, man, okay.
You're not
You
gonna
know.
beat your record, Killer.
Can't wait to fight another couple of months in a war where the server crashes at like 2,500 people.
Are the servers going to save?
Like there wasn't even supers and titans on grid either. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are
I'm
the-
looking
are the
forward
s-
to that part of the war.
Are the servers going to save the Imperium?
I
it
doubt that.
impossible?
Like we'll find a way. It's fine. Like obviously we've already managed to kill a bunch of Keepstars without the server crashing. I think it was just. I'm sure that CCP will come up with a great excuse on why exactly server crashed today. They're probably going to figure out why it crashed, which was a lot of smart bombs activating at the same time. They're gonna make a post like, oh, they're gonna make like a report basically of what happened. And it's like, oh, at 21:45 Eve time, the server registered 10,000 calculations that were caused due to activation of smart bombs. And we're like, yeah, no shit, CCP. We told one of our fleets to smart bomb another fleet. Like we know that. Yeah. And they're hopefully this makes them look into it, and then maybe they can actually find an issue in some way and fix it. Because to be fair, the service performance have been pretty shitty for the entirety of this war so far. Like when at the start of the war, when we were still working on the D4K constellation, we were gating through Fountain with 200 people, nothing more, right? There wasn't like a large fleet movement. There was just one fleet of 200 dudes gating through Fountain, and we were sitting at like 10% time for most of the gates and all that kind of stuff. It's just been going on since the start of the war. Obviously, they haven't paid much attention to it yet because they probably don't think it's an issue. But hopefully, this server crash is going to make them look at it, and maybe they can find an issue and fix it. That's my hope from all of this. Obviously, we're just going to reinforce the Keepstar again. It's whatever, you're right? Like at the end of the day, it doesn't really change anything. It just gives people a good reason to start bitching at CCP for this kind of stuff, and I think that's what's going to happen.
So, am I right in some chat where I've got is that it was the attackers who began the smart bombs?
Didn't begin. Both sides had smart bomb doctrines set up. Goons had their praxis and some ravens that were mixed in with their rocks, and we had a smart bombing Macarial fleet. We got smart bombed. They warped around their praxises from the start and tried to smart bomb people, and then I warped on top of the rocks at 0 with my Ferox fleet. They ran their smart bombs. They killed like 40 Feroxes with that, and then the smart bombing run that caused the server to crash was probably the NC dot Macarial smart bombing Macarial fleet, because we smart bombed the Goon Jackdaw fleet, and that's probably what crashed the server. Because that was like a 200-man fleet of Jackdaws getting killed by smart bombing Macarials, and it seems like that was the one that crashed the server. Because after that smart bomb run happened, it kept going for like 2 minutes and then it died. So
yeah, so that's an interesting note that not many people will be wanting to spin this as it was the Imperium crashing the node, but unintentional, or maybe it's because that's what we are seeing on screen at the moment, which is phantom jackdaws that have taken more than enough damage to be destroyed. And yeah,
Well,
it's just causing that.
we heard there was some server weirdness when the fight started. At least those were the reports I was getting. That there were already some signs that the server wasn't reacting very well to the scale.
Yeah,
of
that's
this
what
fight.
we've had these signs for weeks, right? Like, it's nothing new. It's literally like we've been, since like week 2 of the war, I started telling people the server performance is worse than it has been in a long time, right? And I poked people about it. I told them, I was just like, yo, can you guys maybe talk to CCP, see if they can look into it, because the server performance is terrible. And I'm actually pretty positive that they did talk to them about it, but I'm also pretty sure that I'm pretty certain of the answer they got, because I've dealt with this a couple of times myself, and I know how CCP usually responds to, hey, look, the server's been shit here, can you check it out? Right? They look at it, they're like, unusual data, and then they don't do anything about it because they don't have the resources to do so or whatever. At the end of the day, we'll just have to hope that they find something due to this crash and can change it. Otherwise, I think this is going to happen a bunch more times during this war, for sure.
Yeah, I think this is something that you ran on when you ran for CSM, was to work on the server stability. That was one of the high priorities.
Yeah, and we had some promising sessions about the server stability in the first CSM summit that I attended, but it never really got followed up on properly. Every 1 or 2 years, they make a post saying how they upgraded their server nodes or whatever. They got the new top-notch server standards. And I believe they do. Like, I honestly think their servers are top-notch. I think they have great servers. The problem is that their code's so fucked for this game, right? That the great servers still can't handle it. Because there's some weird stuff happening, like some weird bug is causing an infinite loop or something that causes the servers to crash, right? And that's literally what happened in one of the big fights where the servers crashed. I think it was in UALX. That we talked to them about it after, and they explained, like, I'm not a IT guy, so I honestly didn't really understand much, but we remember the word infinite loop of something, and that causing the server to crash, right? There was some weird bug in the code that caused an infinite loop and then made the server crash or something like that, right? And it's probably going to be the same shit today. Can they fix it? I don't know.
You just said that twice in a row. I was like, I think you're in an infinite loop.
Yeah, maybe I did. Maybe I'm actually stuck myself.
From a tech standpoint, my understanding is an infinite loop
very
is
meta.
just something that constantly will just use up resources and leaks, as people who aren't techie may have heard, like a memory leak. That is something where the memory just doesn't get reassigned, it just gets used up, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and to the point which that's all there is, and it just begins to cause instability and cause things to go down.
Yeah, it could be. Honestly, again, it's something we obviously didn't. I expected the servers to crash during this war a bunch. I just didn't expect it to happen this early. I was hoping it would at least, wait until it would at least be able to prolong it until the Super and Titan fights start. But I guess 2,700 subs and a couple carriers is what it is today.
Yeah.
Oh,
and apparently some smart bomb runs.
That's the thing of it, right? Like, the stakes in this fight were a bit lower individually. People are going to lose ships, maybe, or not. You lock the objective, but when it's a big prize ship that somebody's worked for a while, stuck out there, then it's going to be a bigger problem.
See, the issue I have with this is that people could just say, "Hey, why don't you just stop bringing smart bombing doctrines?" Right, and that's all fair games technically, but it's one of the stronger tools in a fight like this, because smart bombs are one of the most reliable weapon platforms in a fight that involves this much tie-dye. Because the way smart bombs work is you turn them on once and then they just never turn off again in tie-dye like this, which if you're running something like smart bomb materials or smart bomb practices is basically fine, because you warp on something and you just want smart bombs to run until whatever you warp on is dead, right? And smart bombs are very reliable. So I think we're going to continue to see smart bombing doctrines from both attackers and defenders, and obviously just telling us not to use something, I don't really feel like is an option, but we'll see.
Yeah. So I've just got a question asked here. Did you, and it's a question I actually wonder, did you realize those ravens in that rock fleet were smart bomb fit?
I honestly didn't even see ravens to begin with. Yeah. I mean, obviously, if I actually had noticed the Ravens, then I probably would have known that they're smart bombs fit, because Ravens don't really. They could have either been smart bombs or whatchamacallit, fucking ECM burst. But for ECM burst, you'd be using Scorpion. So yeah, I mean, if I had noticed the Ravens, I probably would have assumed that they're smart bomb fit. But honestly, we got away. Like, I think we lost about 40, 45 Feroxes to that smart bomb. So yeah, they did kill a chunk of my fleet, but we managed to.
Yeah, we did. We was.
We managed to kill some stuff in return.
Yeah, we was viewed in on you and watching that happen, and we saw your fleet warp in. And I'll be honest, I did not expect smart bombs. I assumed the Ravens would have been crews to support the rogues. Like
that wouldn't. Yeah, could be, but honestly, when you do rocks like that, then there's no, like, you wouldn't be mixing in Ravens.
But it was.
We just didn't see them, but it was fine.
Yeah, it was a very very odd surprise. Like I wouldn't have personally expected them at all. So yeah, it was nice to know that again. You just didn't see him come in, and like I say, we did see a bunch of your ships die, but your fleet
I did not physically see them. Like, it's not that I didn't see them coming. It's just I didn't physically, like, I literally didn't see any Ravens. You know, when there's a fight this big, the overview is completely fucked. So when I get told, you know, and it's like, hey, Killah, can you warp on those rocks? And yeah, just warp on those rocks, right? I don't like look at them and be like, what ships do they have mixed in with them? Yeah. I just probe the rocks and warp to them, and I didn't see any Ravens. Or the Ravens I did see on my scan, I assume were one of ours, right? So yeah, it's whatever.
Yeah, it's
that part wasn't very significant. Like, that was 40 Feroxes or whatever I lost. Wouldn't have turned the fight. It was just our smart bomb run on those goon jackdaws that killed the node that completed that, basically.
Yeah, I missed it. Did they end up killing you or not? Because we saw you under pressure.
No, I didn't. I didn't die. I survived.
So,
wow.
Killah, you may be able to update us, because I don't know the stats on a skilled monitor pilot. What EHP does your monitor have?
What? Wait, what is the question? My EHP on a monitor?
Yeah, how much effective hit points do you currently have on your ship? Because I know what it is base, but I don't know what it is with skills.
Yeah, I know it's base. Like, it's like 400k or something. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Like, the EHP on the monitor isn't what makes it broken. The fact that it's the EHP combined with the size, so that it has the sig of a fucking frigate, right? So it has the sig size of a frigate and the EHP of a maximum ultra tanked slaved out damnation. So it's like a pimped out damnation in terms of tank. It has like 350, 360k EHP, but it has the size of a frigate, so nothing really tracks it. So it takes a lot to kill a monitor. It's basically impossible to headshot a monitor if there's like any logi reps on him at all. Like, obviously, if you're just being pointed, and there's nothing, like, if, for example, I warp my fleet off and I stay behind solo like I did on that Keepstar grid, then obviously I can die. But with reps on me, it's almost impossible to die.
Yeah.
Headshotting monitors is almost never worth it in a fight. Because it takes you up, like, it would probably take like 2 or 3 fleets to headshot a monitor, and you could just be killing like 50 enemy DPS ships at the same time, you know? Oh, it's not really worth it.
Yeah, it's just wanted to have updated numbers so both the stream knew, as well as for myself and anyone else listening, just so that we know how difficult it is to kill those ships and why you are left alone. Like, you was there, even though the Keepstar was on you, there was a Tech 1 Logi there, and when we did check in after a little while of you being attacked, you still had a blue shield, so you still wasn't under immediate threat. So for those just tuning in or watching and not realising what's happened, the Keepstar did repair due to the server node crash. The attackers were not able to get enough damage on the Keepstar in time. There is still a battle ongoing. Most notably, the Rogue and the Raven and Rogue fleet are currently just brawling it out. No real damage is being done to the Keepstar. I think this is just a pauser to allow pilots to log their ships back in and begin the extraction process for a reinforcement fight to be done.
This is just random shooting the Keepstar.
Yeah. Yeah, so the last D-scan we had of local was just shy of 2150. So this crash was, was not due to the flood of pilots in the system, which was what the previous nodes were.
Yeah, I was gonna say we've had big fights like this before. I really got to say though, the whole Ferox fleet, they did a bang up job. Win or lose, they did a bang up job.
Yeah, so.
Luckily, I've been playing Eve Echoes throughout this entire fight, so I've had my fun anyways.
Nice.
I imagine that's probably going to become a common
New
occurrence.
standard.
Yeah, it's the joys of having a mobile game. It just allows you to watch it in these heavy tie-dye fights of where not a lot changes, to just be able to play on the mobile.
How are you liking it, Killah?
Echoes?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, before you answer, we should say that this weekend we're going to have the producer from CCP of Eve Echoes and CCP Dopamine, myself, Who's a Fish, and Jintan will be joining us on YouTube Sunday as we talk about Eve Online and Eve Echoes and the players.
Well, that's going to be a good stream. I'll have to be tuning in for that one.
We'll remind you on the Sunday show, but it'll be this Sunday on YouTube. Okay, gotta run.
Is it on YouTube because Twitch is banned in China?
No,
Because
didn't.
had more pickup for some reason.
Yeah,
for
mobile players
that
are.
type of games. So
I think we find that mobile players aren't like video game players in this way, because video game players log into their game and then they put on their comms and then they're all together. And mobile players don't want to like get on the phone with you. You know, they kind of play on their own. So it's a bit different.
tons of
Oops, I
YouTube
mean, yeah, it's
content,
fine.
but there's hardly
I
any
don't play
content.
this game on my phone at all. Like, I just play it on an emulator on my computer. I would get fucking cancer staring at my at my phone screen for a sustained amount of time.
You can use your tablet or iPad.
Yeah, tablet is probably fine as well, honestly. Like, it's just, I'm not playing shit on my phone. Every mobile game I play, I just play on my computer with my emulator. And then I just occasionally log in when I'm like at work or something. I log in real quick to update something. Maybe put in something new and build in terms like in Echoes or something. But I would never actually play the game for a long amount of time on my phone.
Be careful on the market. You get flagged for botting or.
Oh, I got flagged plenty of times already. I get flagged all the time for contracting my old stuff. Like, I just contract stuff between my two characters, and the stuff I contract around gets flagged all the time. It's whatever.
I think they're getting better with that system. I've not noticed flags between my main and my ults on the same account, as well as my second account. I've not noticed any flags go off on that.
Yeah, it's true. It seems like they figure out. Like, I even, like, the first time I contracted something to my alt of significant value, I even put in the contract, hey, this is my alt, can you please not lock this? Because sometimes it's really annoying when I contract myself a lot of ore to build something, for example, and then the ore gets locked in by for review for a couple of hours, and I don't have access to the ore, right? And then I have to wait a couple hours until I can use it.
Yeah. So there's a question from the Twitch chat from Bjorn Joha. The important question is, will you put a skin on your monitor?
In Eve, I do. In Echoes, there is no monitor, yeah.
You didn't have a skin on it.
Oh, I didn't? Yeah, it's probably because this is one of my reship monitors, so I forgot to apply a skin then. I have the police skin, the only one that's... I have the correct skin for the monitor, it's just I didn't apply it. I have a stash of monitors now, because in these fights I usually expect to get D'd a lot more than I actually end up getting DD'd. So I got a stash of replacement monitors in that I can just reship into or out of.
Yeah. So we're seeing on the stream now the Legacy fleet beginning to warp up to their Astra house. I think pilots are soon going to be extracting out from system. With just now the Keepstar has hit repair, they're going to extract out and come back at another time to be there to reinforce it again.
I find the interesting thing, and this is more, I guess, real military stuff, but I think it applies in Eve. When you're on the defense, all you have to do is screw the fight up once, and you're done. When you're on the offense, well, just like I think Killah was saying in the background as I was shooting his people, they can just come right back on this.
Yeah, that is the joys of being the attacker in this situation, is that the defender, even though they have defended this one this time around, same with the White Hash 2 Keepstar, is it will have to be defended again, because it's not like they're going to leave this objective. It will be on their list of things we have to destroy, so they will have to come back to do it. Yeah, so we will see another fight at this Keepstar. So it is that nature of attack and defend. It is unfortunate with the node crash, as this Keepstar was maintaining pause. However, these things do happen. Servers are, unfortunately, servers. They will eventually have issues and fall over. I believe CCP will do some investigation into this, and we will find out causes and any possible solutions they are beginning to look at for this. I imagine they already are in general, but
I can say, at least from my system, my perspective, the fleet I was in, probably, I think it was about the time the first Ferox fleet came in on our rogue fleet. A little after that, things started just chug-a-lugging, and I was already like in 18% whole when I locked up the first Ferox from the first Ferox fleet that came in on us.
yeah, I've had a couple of messages on Discord mentioning that obviously there are differences that could be made from both sides to prevent crashes, but at the same time, there shouldn't need to be the requirement to make sure your attacker fleet doesn't cause a crash. Smart bombs in this instance were used.
It's not the player's responsibility not to crash the server. It's CCP's responsibility to make sure the server doesn't crash. Like how is that even, like, how are you even talking about that?
Yeah.
Like, it is not the player's responsibility that we like try to avoid crashing the server. The server just shouldn't be crashing. It's a fucking joke. It's like,
yeah, I mean, what? So, like, you or Asher, somebody is supposed to hotline CCP and say, "Hey, I've got this fleet compo that crashed."
No. They know this stuff. We talk to CCP all the time. It's not like it's a secret. That's not the point. The point is that, like, we tell them about these fights in advance. We tell them, hey, this is going to be a big one, blah blah blah. We try to get them to put attention to it, right, so that the server has the necessary strength to keep up with the fight. But like, why would we? I don't know, man. I just don't feel like we should be planning our doctrines and our war around the fact that servers could be crashing. Obviously, we have to now. Like, we know that this is going to happen, continue to happen, and we have to put that, like, we have to keep that in mind when we do plan these fights. But it shouldn't be the case. It shouldn't be our responsibility.
Yeah, and that's my agreement as well. Is it isn't down to prime example is everyone likes to blame smart bombs for causing these crashes, but we've seen in this fight and on this field multiple times where smart bombs were used efficiently and effectively, and even to the one that caused the node crash was the best point to use them. Destroying an entire fleet of smart bombs is a major win for either side, and it just so happened that at this stage it did cause the server to fall over. It doesn't mean that smart bombs are not to be used. It doesn't mean that there shouldn't be Smartbomb doctrines. It just means something has to be changed on the server. So to get your opinions, I think, Killah, and for anyone else in the chat, I've seen a lot of posts recently on the forums and on Reddit about the bounty system being active during these engagements. Do you think that has any impact?
I have no idea, honestly. I know I remember talking about the bounty system before when there was big fights going on, and we asked CCP to disable the bounty system in the fight system where the fight's going on, but apparently there was an issue with that of some kind. So I honestly don't know. I'm not a server technician, but anything that puts load on the server is bad in a fight like this, obviously.
Because we saw previously where when Titans used to explode, they used
The
to
entire
cause...
bounty system should just be removed because honestly, it's fucking useless anyways, right? But it's probably not possible for some reason. So it's whatever.
I hope for the days of old where, when I first started playing the game, we used to go on bounty hunts where we used to find players on the list that had high bounties, and we'd try and hunt them down and try and find what system and then to kill them and pod them so we get their bounty.
Well, unless the bounty system was way better back then, that seems like a waste of time to me. Because you get fuck all money anyways, right? It's not worth it really. But it may have been different back then, I don't know. Anyways, my fleet's screaming at me, so I gotta go. I'll see you guys around.
Cheers for chatting, Killah.
Have fun storming the castle.
Yeah. So we see here now, local is beginning to drop. We're down to 1900 pilots and forever going down. We see the lovely Beanie Cannon back here again with his Ragnarok. The Pandemic Horde token Ragnarok, who is pretty much there whenever they need a bridge. This Ragnarok is constantly involved in all the fights, so he's here to bridge the fleets out, get them out to safety. So yeah, overall for the Keepstar, Keepstar has repaired from server instability, and the attackers are still coiled on it. The attackers are now coiled on their Astra House. All of the defenders are still down by the Keepstar, but we are seeing ships jump out. People are leaving local, so this Keepstar will be, I believe, planned for another day.
Oh yeah, I definitely expect to see you all back there, and we'll see what happens. I mean,
Yeah, so we'll stay and watch some of these fleets leave. And if anyone has any questions they want to put in chat, do feel free, and I'll answer them as best as I can. Playing Eve as many as I do have a good knowledge.
see, for me, the hard part about these huge tie-dye fights, if something like this happens, is, at least for me in the fleet, I couldn't reasonably gauge if the Keepstar would have gone down or not gone down. Because if we hadn't had a server crash or a node crash, just because, it was that bad for the tie-dye.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting point. Obviously, the battles could have changed at any moment. The Imperium could have dropped something massive on the Raven fleet. So there is a chance where there could have been a development in the fight to cause the Keepstar to be saved. But at the time of the node crash, the Keepstar had been paused for over 50% of its damage, with 13 minutes and 37 seconds left on the timer. The damage being put there by that Raven fleet. So a large majority of the fleet engagement was not on the Keepstar itself. It was keeping things paused. So with that, based on the first 50%, the second 50% would have gone the same way. There would have been losses either side. But it's hard to say exactly what it would have happened because we don't know what anyone's future plans were.
Either way, as much as these things can be frustrating, this is just part of how wars go in Eve.
It's not just wars; it's just Eve itself. Server crashes are unfortunately a thing of Eve. They do happen now and again. You can't odds against it. We've seen over 4,000 people in the system, over 6,000 people in the system is the record, and here we had 2,200 people, which caused the server just to fall over just from the amount that was going on.
Server definitely had some issues.
Oh, hey, Vily.
Hey.
So do you think, Vily, that the Keepstar would have died if the server didn't crash?
Would have been put into hull, of course.
That's what I mean. So finished the reinforce.
Yeah, I mean, of course, obviously.
Yeah.
we were winning on every metric, right? So it's not like it's
I don't know.
it was
50% in on mine.
Say what, sorry?
It was weird. Like, so when the server crashed, Vily, how far was the armor down on your side? Because it was only showing like about 50% down on my side.
Yeah, I believe it's 50% done or something like that.
Yeah. I wish that crash wouldn't have happened, though. I really got to give props to the Ferox fleets from your side. That was well played.
In what way?
In the way that it pretty much emaciated the rogue fleet that I was in.
Oh yes, well that definitely helped.
It was kind of like a little. Ferox chainsaw is appropriate.
Ferox chainsaw.
Yeah,
Okay.
because when I calculate for tie-dye, for example, I was watching Rokes go down, and if we wouldn't have had tie-dye, it would have just been boom, 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 dead. Couldn't track them, couldn't really deal with them like we needed to, and
Yeah. So for the stream here, we're just seeing the Pandemic Horde Titan, the bean counter. The bead cannon is still just getting into position. Likelihood is he's changing fleets as we speak, ready to bridge out this Test Alliance Rogue fleet that's getting onto him.
NC, is there a reason you guys have like 1,000 carriers still? Oops. Wrong comms.
Wrong comms. It's really dropping off. Likelihood is to give an instruction to the NC carriers. So, local in system is now down to 1600 for those still watching. We are at almost negligible tie-dye, 85%, and we are just with the last few fleets here ready to bridge out.
yeah. So like one thing that was interesting about those Ferox, and that's why I'm giving them so much credit. For whatever reason, the timing happened when we were switching from all our range stuff for the Rogues to all our tracking speed stuff, and most of us couldn't even activate our tracking speed modules because of the tie-dye and everything. It was all still loading for us. So it was just like, I don't know, happy accidents for the Ferox fleet, but
Yeah. Yeah, but now the interesting thing I would like to know what happens is for all of these carrier pilots, obviously, they all had drones deployed at the time of the crash, so I would be interested to see what actually happens to those drones. And I see a very odd thing going on, which I can't quite explain. Goonswarm are reinforcing their own Keepstar.
The shield, right?
This is... Yeah, I thought the time had been paused may have been a bug, but just zooming in here, we can clearly see these Goonswarm Rokes are reinforcing their Keepstar.
In KVN, so not in Y-2.
No, correct, this is in KVN.
Yes,
Okay,
this is
that's very weird. It's, that doesn't make sense, but it might have made a little bit of sense of the shield timer, but yeah. Really.
Okay, so we see the damage is hasn't been enough to keep it paused, so it's now back to repairing. So likelihood is either they've stopped or they're just doing it for some form of a joke. But yeah, it's not an insignificant amount of damage. They've done a bar of damage on the short menu. No, you see it just going through that repair again. So yeah, they did not an insignificant amount of damage at least. So digital MacGyver just said if they have to keep style, that's good sportsmanship. I was actually wondering if that's what something I was going for, or if they would get it low and then just kind of leave it to the reinforce or repair. So now this is where it will be interesting. So here we see Goonswarm, Rokes, and Jackdaws warp up to this Astra House. Now, naturally, as things go forward, the Titan will eventually be one of the last ships left here. Now, is this known, and are they going to try and do something about it, or is this just opportunistic attacks? So we have to see what these fleets have planned.
This is a fairly standard mop-up stuff that's going on.
So I think here they are attacking fighters. So these are carriers fighters who have jumped out and have since just left them floating. So these aren't any individual player assets. These are just standard fighters floating in space.
Looks like fight's on.
Yeah, so far I don't see any ships targeted. So because of this Astra House, everything that is on this Astra House is very likely to be tethered. Untethering at this moment in time would probably be one of the worst things that could be possibly done for your ship. So fighters unfortunately do not share the tether. So we'll have to see what goes on here. See, the structure guided bomb is going off, so it has got a ship in mind for a target.
So I'm looking at just what I know. You know, I mean, this is Asher out here, and that's a man that will surprise you.
So naturally, there is the Ragnarok of the Bean Cannon here. He is the only Titan here. He is not alone, however. He hasn't bridged out these last few fleets, so there is still a Ferox and Roke fleet here that can cause disruption. And we see there, the Goonswarm of Saber has bubbled him, but he is still safe due to Tether. So it may be a question of that he ends up logging off to ensure that he doesn't get bumped out and removed forcefully, or if there will be a fight over this grid. But we'll keep an eye on it and see what goes on here. Here we see one of these unfortunate ships has got a lock. I believe that it will be this Claymore pilot has used his command burst, which unfortunately gives him a weapons timer, so makes it so he now is no longer tethered.
Yeah, I think this is just like mop up fighting. Maybe they can't get out. I don't know.
Yeah, so with the bubbles around this Titan, it is not possible for him to bridge out these fleets.
So they stuck to the slaughter unless they're tethered, but
Yeah, so we are now seeing these Rokes and Feroxes engaging into some of these small subcaps here. Again, they are unable to warp out due to the bubbles. They can, however, dock if they are tethered, but it's seeming like a couple of these command ships have activated boosts and as such are unable to break tether. We see there it's the Evictus monitor, and so this is this Ferox fleet mostly being legacy. That he's now trying to get them to move so they're not so out of position. So we hear there's an Osprey from Brave Alliance that has obviously just locked a ship to provide reps, I would imagine. As such, they are being locked up, and all these initiative interceptors that are here are just picking them off. We see here the initiative mercenaries have a bunch of interceptors in the system. And we have just seen there that the Titan from the beam cannon has disappeared. He is no longer in space. So he has safe logged out of this incident, so he did not have any
there's a
regression timer.
oh, okay. There's a couple that have done that today.
Yeah. So the best thing for that Titan is to prevent him being bumped by ships outside of the safety of tether. He has just dropped fleet, disabled all modules that were activating, and has logged off. So he will reappear in that space, but he will likely log back in when it is safe for him to do so. We see as well, we've just had the Dreadnought safe log as well, and imagine these carriers, the moment they do not have a timer, will again safe log, so we should see these capitals begin to disappear as they safe log as well. So the only sub-capitals that will be here will very likely be docking up. As we can see, there are 285 people docked here. You can see that by the number right above my mouse cursor. So these ships are getting into a safe spot, docking up, and we'll attempt to extract at a later time.
So to bring up people up to speed on what's happened with CCP tweeting is they've said that this theory said basically that this shouldn't have happened and that there was something dearly wrong.
Yeah, I agree with what Killah was saying. You know, it's not up to the fleet command to figure out what's going on and base their fleets around that. It's up to CCP, and I hope that there is, and I'm pretty sure that there will be some sort of internal review of this kind of stuff.
They have said will be an internal review.
Yeah. So the quote from the CCP tweet: "We are unhappy about this, as all of you as all of you are. We are investigating the issue now, so we can be sure it doesn't happen again." In a reply, it was stated, "There was over 4,000 people in Y-2 last weekend with no such issue beyond heavy tie-dye. This is unusual, should not have happened, and should not be what you all come expecting from heavy loaded systems." So CCP are going to have a good look into this from that, as well as hopefully figuring out if there was a weakness on this reinforced node, because let's say it was reinforced to the best available server.
Or it could have been simply the storms or one of the numerous trig updates that we've had so far was contributing to it.
Yeah, there could, like I said, yeah, there could be something that they're unaware of. So the new Triglavian storms could have put a bit of load on the servers, or any possible update could have affected in any different way. So at least now we have confirmation that CCP are going to be looking into it, and they are going to figure out what the underlying cause was. So here we see the Imperium are now leaving this Astra House. Or at least the Rogue fleet is leaving. There are still a few capitals and some sub-capitals tethered to the Astra House, but they're just proceeding to move out of bubbles. They are not reinforcing it. It is just the last few remaining stragglers here. Local systems down to 1,300, 300 of which are the attacking, well, the legacy fleet that was attacking the Keepstar. They're now docked in their Astra House, so there is 1,000 pilots in space. That number is soon to be dropping ever so more as well.
And I mean, if you wanted, the last time we had a node crash was, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, was I believe the ULAX, and that was when goons were jumping in their supercat fleet, which was, goon supercat fleet.
Yeah, that's not the last node crash that I'm aware of. However, it's the last major node crash. There have been others I've been in system on that weren't on reinforced nodes, but like I say, that was one of the last major ones that happened, and it was one fleet jumping in just caused so much load that it just went and fell over.
Yeah, I'm thinking major node crashes because who cares about if it's a sudden fleet fight and you're on a particularly busy node and it just ends up crashing. That happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the last major thing to happen on that grid was, I think, the NC pulled off. correct me if I'm wrong, a 50-man or so killed a chemo to 50-man jackdaw fleet. That was the last major thing to go down. And I don't think that shouldn't have crashed the node.
As we had Killah Bee on before, Killah Automaya, and he stated that there was multiple smart bomb fleets that went around. However, the last one was the Mercurial fleet from NC, or at least the attacking force. I'm not sure which alliance they helmed from. Went and landed on the 200-man Jackdaw fleet of the Imperium and began smart bombing. We did see them floating in space as legacy, and in fact, we still can. That's these Jackdaws here. They are since stuck in limbo because these were as a result of these disruptions. That was the node crash. So these ships are all stuck in a state where they are both dead and alive, ironically, because they are not destroyed, but they are not boardable, and they are, as you can see here, extremely damaged.
But the entire thing is bizarre, to say the least.
Yeah, this should not have caused a crash. It should have caused a
200
large load.
man jackdaw fleets dying. 200-man interceptor. Small tackle fleet dying to a well-placed smart bomb is practically expected in this kind of fight. Because I mean, think about from DO6, which was a previous node crash during when goons came north to Glass Tribute. DO6, there was a 500-man blob of two combined fleets that got bombed. And that's what caused the node crash in DO6, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But a 200-man jackdaw fleet dying to what was it? 20 smart bomb folks max?
I believe it was 20 to 25 Mercurials.
Yeah, but at the 22 Mercurials. But yeah, the point remains the same, that whatever happened should not have happened.
Yeah, and that point is reinforced by both sides of the battle. I've had messages from both sides saying that it should not have happened, and obviously CCP in their tweets have also said that it's something that shouldn't have happened. They're going to do an investigation into why it has happened and hopefully be able to do some changes and some fixes to ensure that this doesn't happen again, which I think is overall a good thing to happen this early in the war, because we've known server instability is a risk and cause for concern in this war. So yeah.
Yeah, but so I would expect, if this was a 6,000-man fight, I would expect the node to crash at some point. But a 2,000-man fight, that's just like, that's like CCP's bread and butter, like an almost monthly occurrence, I want to say.
So we see in chat, Alma Fainus put in, how about if they just pause the timer until most people were back? It's a very tricky thing to do with pausing the timer, because if you pause it too long, then you're giving the attackers too much advantage. If you pause it too short, it's the defender's advantage. So what CCP did at the time of the node crash, they did actually have a paused state on the Keepstar. It came back online well over 10 minutes later with a 7-minute timer, which wouldn't have occurred. So CCP did, or at least there was some timer manipulation that went on. However, it's a very fine balancing act on pausing it until both sides are ready to attack, because you do a countdown local 3, 2, 1, go. It's very difficult to keep it balanced in that sense.
I believe CCP has a policy when it comes to node crashes. When the node crashes, any timers are such that are on grid get paused, and then when the node comes back online and is ready to accept connections, then CCP unpauses everything. Like once the first person connects or something like that. And to be honest, I'd rather keep it that way, where CCP has a very clearly defined, this is when we unpause, and this is when we pause, rather than it being something fuzzy.
Yeah. I think it was as the timer was counting down to 0, there was a very close amount needed to hit the pause. I think personally, if there was another 30 seconds, the pause may have gone on. But it was a very difficult thing coming back to this point. So I think once the node went down, it kind of did seal in the fate that the Keepstar would get repaired. However, it wasn't as straightforward as that, and like I say, it is only the first reinforced, so it was only their armor that was under attack, so it is not as if it was a 4 or 5 day process to get to this. It was only a 1 to 2 day process, so I'm sure the attackers aren't too disheartened
the big
at it.
problem was that the attacking force, the Ravens in particular, I was in the Pan Raven fleet, we spawned at 60 AU from the Keepstar, and our E-warps ended at 60 AU. So we then had to warp 60 AU to the freaking Astra in order to even get onto the Keepstar.
Yeah.
Which was bizarre. If we had just done the normal 1 mil E-warp, we would have been fine. But it was 60 AU off the Keepstar.
Yeah, so we're down to just going below 1,000 pilots left in system. We see here that there is a Goonswarm Ragnarok that has come out from the Keepstar. He is very much going to be bridging home that Praxis fleet, and most notably as well, he may end up bridging home the Rogue fleets. So we're pretty much getting to the last few fleets in system here.
But the chat does have a point that ever since the storms went live, the connections have been kind of unstable across the board.
So Azael Reborn is asking chat, who is blue and who's red? So in this instance, we have the Imperium and defending forces here are red, and the attacking forces are blue. That was at a request of the defending forces when I asked them when I first set up these ults. I will put a note on the stream for next time, Azael. Good note, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are just about to reach the 3-hour mark on stream, guys. I don't feel like there's going to be any real developments coming on here. So, thank you all of you for tuning in. Unfortunately, it was a bit of an odd ending to this battle, but it's not as if there was another timer. So, thank you all for tuning in. So, I've been Sully. In chat with me, we've had Caleb, Killah Otamea, and we've had pop-ins from Killah Bee, Vily, Metal, and Toxic. So, unfortunately, I'm not in a position to go and raid anyone. However, I do see that there are a couple of streamers online. Ron and Torvald is online, so please do feel free to go and check them out. But other than that, thank you very much, guys, and hopefully I'll be with you for the next Keepstar fight.